Hilary,
Yes.
Tom Tyson said he's still waiting to be let in.
Yes, there must be something wrong with. He needs to come out and start again, I think, because he's been trying to join for ages.
All right, okay.
Is it just Tom?
Hang on, he's joining by another method. Let's see if we can let him in.
I just want to let members know in the chair that we are now live
Thank
on
you.
YouTube.
Thank you, Matthew. All right, then we'll start. And hopefully everybody can join us for when we start actually getting into the material, so they won't miss a vote or anything. Welcome to this virtual meeting, as conducted by members and officers at various locations, communicating via audio and online. There is also an opportunity for the public and press to listen and to view proceedings. Before the meeting starts, I'd like to invite the committee's member and scrutiny manager to explain how proceedings will work and take a roll call to confirm members, officers and registered speakers in attendance. Hilary, could you take a roll call, please?
Thank you very much. So I will call out each of your names if you can respond, please. I'm just going to do it by surname. Albert. Councillor Albert. Okay, I'll come back to that. Councillor Allen.
Yeah. Just to say, Councillor Albert is unmuted, but we can't hear him, so he may need to log out and come back in. That sometimes solves it.
I mean, it's difficult with the budget.
Thank you. Aspinwall.
I'm here.
Barnard.
Yeah.
Billing Claire.
I'm here.
Billing Judy.
I'm here.
Bishop.
Yeah.
Brown.
Here.
Bryant.
Here.
Clark.
Here, Councillor Tyson says he's logged in another way and he's still got the waiting message.
Yeah, I can see him waiting, to be honest. Okay. Councillor Collins, has he managed to get in yet?
I am in. Yes, hello.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Davidson, I didn't see. Okay. Councillor George Davis, did you manage to get in?
Councillor Davies will be half an hour late.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Deacon Davies.
Yes, I'm here.
Dennis Harburg.
Here.
Derbyshire.
Yeah.
Frost. No. Okay. Green.
Apologies for Frost.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Green.
I'm present here.
Thank you. Grindle.
Here.
Harwood.
Hello.
Cone.
Present.
Hoskins.
Here.
Hewson.
Here.
Hunter.
Present.
Jarvis.
Yeah.
Levitt.
Present.
Mantle.
Yeah.
McNally.
Here.
Ian Moody. Morris.
Yeah.
Muir.
Yeah.
Present.
Nash.
Present.
Nguala.
Here.
North.
Here.
Oliver.
Here.
Prendergast.
Present.
Rice.
Present.
Vajera Chaka.
Present.
Not seeing Councillor Shanley.
I have apologies from Councillor Shanley.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Stanier.
I'm here.
Steers Hanscom.
Present.
Strong.
Present.
Fake.
Yeah.
Tyler.
Yeah.
Tyson.
Tyson is still waiting.
He's still
to
stuck
join.
out there, isn't he? Yes. Okay. Councillor Weeks.
Present.
And lastly, Councillor Albert, are you back?
I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yes, thank you very much indeed.
Yay!
So as far as I'm aware, that's everybody called. So please note that the meeting is being streamed live onto YouTube and recorded via Zoom. Extracts from the partly remote meetings protocol are included with the agenda, and the full version is available on the Council's website, which includes information regarding live streaming, noise interference, rules debate, voting and part 2 items. Members are requested to ensure that they are familiar with the protocol. And just a reminder that the voting system will be as per the last time, where we will ask for votes on 4, and you use your blue raise hand, which can be found in either participants or reactions, depending on the version of Zoom that you have. And then we will ask for against, followed by abstain for each vote. Are there any questions? In that case, I'll hand over to the Chair of the Council, Councillor Terry Tyler. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to apologies for absence. I've got Councillor Kate Hart, Councillor Frost and Councillor Shanley, with Councillor Davis saying he's going to be 30 minutes late, roughly. And that's all.
Chairman, I also have apologies from Councillor Ian Moody.
Oh, thank you very much, Councillor Ian Moody. Thank you. Is there any more? No, that's good. Okay. Now to Chairman's notification of other business. There is no other business this time. Chairman's announcements, item 4. First of all, I'd like to thank Val for gallantly standing in for me on the last meeting. I understand it was quite a challenging meeting. And thank you very much, Val, for, or Councillor Bryant, should I say, Vice Chair, standing in for me. So thank you very much for that. Audio recording, I think as Hilary has already said, in accordance with the council policy, this meeting has been audio and videoed, as well as being videoed. The audio recordings are available via mod.gov and the film recording by the NHDC YouTube channel. 2, climate emergency. Members are reminded that the council has declared a climate emergency. This is a serious decision and means that, as this is an emergency of all of us, officers and members, have in mind we will need to carry out various roles and tasks for our benefit of our district. Declarations of interest. Have we got any declarations of interest this evening, councillors? Okay, just a reminder though, members are reminded to make declarations of interest before the item. The detailed reminders about this and speaking rights set out under Chairman's announcements on the agenda. 4, we're just going to cover the rules of debate. Please, can I remind you?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I do apologise for interrupting you, and I'm not sure if this is the right place or not, but there is the sad news of one of our officers passing, and I don't know if...
Yes, we are aware of that. We're going to cover that, not this evening, but next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
In accordance with the family's wishes. But thank you, Councillor Clark. Rules of debate. Please can I remind you that the normal procedures rules in respect of debate and times to speak will apply. No speeches should be made after the mover has moved the proposal and explained the purpose of it under the motion being seconded. When seconded, a motion amended or amendment, a member may reserve the speech their right to speak until a later debate. In accordance with the Constitution, members are ensured that no speech should exceed 5 minutes without the consent of the chair. In fact, this evening we have got my consent for Councillor Albert when he's discussing the budget. So that's already been applied for and granted. 5, we'll talk about a comfort break. I'm thinking that if we are still operating at 9 o'clock, then we will take a short break and we'll decide whether that's a 5 or 10 minute break at the time. Order of business. I will take items 12 and 13 prior to item 9 in this case. As far as public participation is concerned, we have none this evening. 6, we have items referred from other committees. 6A, referral from the Cabinet on the 26th of the 1st, 21, Revenue Budget 2021-22. And this will be taken with item 8 and 6B, referral from the Cabinet of 2601-21, Investment Strategy, brackets, Capital and Treasury. I will take this referred item after item 8. Moving on to item 7, Pay Policy Statement 2021-22. Can I call upon Councillor Martin Steers-Hanscom to present and propose the pay policy statement for 21-22, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. And can I say it's really good to see you back with us.
Thank you.
As members will see in the executive summary, the pay policy statement is required to be published by various items of legislation, and the content of the statement is in line with that legislation. The pay rates detailed in the statement may be subject to a pay award depending on pay negotiations. We have budgeted for a 2.25% pay increase, but it is possible that the pay award could be lower than this and could be a zero increase. And here I'm going to go off my text and say I'll be very disappointed for our hardworking staff if that was the case. There may also be other changes required to the statement during the year, which is why you're asked to approve recommendation 2.2. As part of agreeing the statement, you are asked to approve the limits as to when any salary package or discretionary severance award will need to be approved by council. It is proposed that these limits are kept at £100,000. As you will note in paragraph 3.10 of the statement, which is on page 13 of the report, the 95,000 on exit payments has been introduced. So it's unlikely that in practice the 100,000 approval limiter will be relevant. However, it is prudent to keep it in place until the regulations and their implications are fully bedded in. So with that, I'm very happy to answer questions, and Mr. Cooper is also here, for whom I thank for the report, to help me if there's anything that I can't answer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. May I have a seconder for the policy statement?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm happy to second that. Sorry, couldn't find my unmute button.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Right, okay, now moving to debate on this subject. I've got nobody requesting to speak at this point. Would any councillor like to speak? No? Okay. Well, in that case, it'll take us to the vote. So we're voting on the recommendations of 2.1 and 2.2. 2.1 is the council is recommended to endorse the 2021-22 pay policy statement in attachment as Appendix A. And 2.2 is the council is also recommended to agree to delegate authority for revisions made in a year to the pay policy statement to the Services Director Resources in consultation with the leader of the council. Revisions which might arise in the year include changes in structure, changes to employment, benefits, subsequent pay awards, agreed national and local and new legislative requirements. I'm just going to check. Nobody's raised their hand to talk. Therefore, Hilary, can you take us to the vote, please?
Certainly, Chair. So can I ask all those who wish to vote in favour of the recommendations to raise their blue hand now?
It's certainly carried, isn't it? Hilary?
Yes, it is carried. Are there any anybody that ought to ask? Is there anyone against? Are there any hang on a second, sorry. Are there any abstentions? No, that's fine. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, then those recommendations 2.1 and 2.2 are carried. Moving on to item 8, the revenue budget. I'll be inviting Councillor Steers-Hanscom to speak, following which Councillor Ian Albert will present the report. I've agreed already with Councillor Albert that we may speak for more than 5 minutes regarding the budget. Of course, as keeping it as short as possible, Councillor Albert. Members are aware that it will be a recorded vote, and I propose that we will take all the recommendations as one, unless I hear contrary and we need to split them. Councillor Albert, can I ask you to present the report, please? Referring to 6A.
I think, Chair, you've indicated that I will speak first.
I did. Sorry. Councillor Steers-Hanscom, please, can you address this, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. This time last year, we were seated in the council chamber for the annual budget council meeting. We could not have imagined then that within the next year, we would have changed the way we work so drastically, worked with the NHS and other agencies to keep our residents safe, ensured that the finance to protect our businesses and our residents were delivered speedily and effectively, and adapted in so many other ways to the pandemic that has afflicted us all. I'm extremely pleased and honoured to have led the council over this last year, as we have, officers and councillors, stepped up to the plate. In particular, I want to place on record our thanks to our fantastic staff for the way they have responded to the challenge. We in local government have provided the boots on the ground, without which protecting our communities would not have been achieved. Indeed, when the siren voices of 2 of our MPs were demanding we eased our restrictions just before Christmas, we said no, and we were right. Our administration has done everything humanly possible to keep North Hart safe. We have done everything the government asked of us and more. The government promised that if we did that, they would provide the finance to do the work and to cover our losses. The fact that the government has left us short has consequences. This evening, the council has the duty to set a budget for the forthcoming year. We have to set a balanced budget. Unlike the government, we cannot borrow to finance day-to-day spending. While we would do our best to work more efficiently to make up the shortfall, there are some savings, some cuts that we are not prepared to make because it would mean closing services vital to our residents. And we do want to look forward with hope, with a determination to ensure that as we come out of the pandemic, we build back better. But building back better will be an empty slogan unless it means that we use the opportunity to bank the gains we have made and to work with greater determination in responding to the climate emergency. And unless it means that we will do all that we can to support those who are most vulnerable, those most affected by the pandemic, and ensure that they are not left behind, which is why we have, had we been able to raise that little extra from a larger council tax rise, we would have set it aside for that purpose. Now, in many ways, I am pleased that we don't have the option to increase the district council portion of council tax any more than we will be recommending later. As Councillor Albert will confirm later, we don't have the option of the higher increase in council tax that the Conservative-led district councils network were lobbying for. And any increase for our residents, of course, at this time, at this very difficult time, is regrettable. However, the fact that the government has left us short forces us to raise council tax more than we would like, effectively a Conservative government stealth tax. I know, yes, it's only a £5 a year or 10p a week increase. But the point is that our residents are paying more for this council to have less to provide the services they rely on. I know that's not new, but that's very relevant at this very difficult time. And I will come back to that point later. Now, it would be great if we could look forward to a year when COVID-19 doesn't dominate everything that we talk about. Unfortunately, we can't set a budget for next year without mentioning it a few times. Councillor Albert will describe in more detail the impacts of increased spend and reduced income in this year and how it has affected our reserves, and also the financial risks we face moving forward to 21-22. Whilst we understand the reasons that the new funding mechanisms for local government have been delayed again, and welcome that negative revenue support grant won't face us for at least another year, we are forced again into setting a short-term budget. It is looking likely that there still won't be any certainty over our funding next year. So we may be in the same place when we're setting a budget for 2022-23. We're therefore working on the assumption that we will need to be able to deliver 2 million of savings per year by 2025-26. They could come from efficiencies, service transformation, income generation, or service changes. Unfortunately, years of Conservative government austerity mean that opportunities for efficiencies are pretty much gone. We are committed to a service transformation programme that we hope will improve the way people interact with us and also save some money. We remain committed to developing income from acting more commercially, though we have to be realistic about what can be achieved given the economic effects of COVID-19. We therefore have to plan on the basis that we might need to deliver a significant amount of savings through service changes. Councillor Elbert will describe in more detail how we have set up a challenge board process. We would like to have funded more of our aspirations, but we have to be realistic, and no doubt when we discuss some amendments later on, that will come up again. But we have to be realistic about what we have the capacity to deliver and can afford to do. We remain committed to delivering on our priorities as we set out in the council plan of continuing to be a welcoming, inclusive and efficient council, building thriving and resilient communities, supporting the delivery of good quality and affordable homes, responding to challenges to the environment, and enabling an enterprising and cooperative economy. In proposing the council tax level for next year, we have to consider medium-term forecasts over funding levels, the financial impact of COVID-19 to date, and the potential impacts next year, and, as I have already emphasised, the government assumption that we will put up council tax by the maximum amount allowed when determining how much funding we need. So we propose that the council tax element for North Hertfordshire is increased by the maximum amount allowed without the need for a local referendum, in line with the medium-term financial strategy. That is a £5 increase on a Band D property, with the increases on other bands pro rata to that. And a £5 increase is 2.1%. We shared our draft budget proposals with all members of the council of all parties in the budget workshop in November. We also asked for contributions of ideas for ways that the council can save money, either through spending less, delivering more, or generating income. I hope that this level of participation will assist the agreement by all of us this evening of the budget, which I believe is a reasonable balance between a short and medium-term focus. I will now ask Councillor Elbert to expand on our proposed budget. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Steers. Can I call upon Councillor Albert to address us?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor colleagues. And thank you, Chair, for allowing me some additional time to speak this evening on the agenda item. I'll try not to overstay your indulgence. And I'm glad, as Martin mentioned earlier, that you're recovered from your recent illness and back with us this evening. I'd like to start with some thanks, in case I forget later. Firstly, I'd like to thank my deputy in our Labour and Liberal Democrat joint administration, Councillor Sam North, for his support and advice. I think, perhaps far-sightedly, Sam was one of the first to raise about in January last year whether we had an emergency plan in place for a pandemic. Sam and I have had the fortune in our portfolio to deal with two excellent senior officers and their teams. Firstly, Ian Cooper and all the finance and other teams that report to him. Our auditors, Ernst & Young, commended our staff for the work they had done in managing our budgets and quickly and effectively preparing our accounts for audit. And then I would like to thank Jo Dufficy, and previously in her predecessor, Howard Compton, until his partial retirement last autumn, and all their staff. Their successful management of our customer-facing issues, including council tax, business rates, council tax reduction scheme has enhanced the reputation of this council amongst our residents. In addition, working with councillors Hoskins, Oliver and Sam North and myself, Joe's team have designed and implemented both our statutory and local discretionary business grant schemes. And so far, I'm pleased to say we've paid out £34 million in grants to local businesses through the various government schemes. The prompt payments, particularly in recent weeks, have been welcomed across the district by businesses and our business improvement districts. Now, when I spoke at our budget setting meeting in February last year, we'd just seen the spread of this virus. No one could really imagine the extent that it would dominate our lives since then. Our thoughts are with those who have lost loved ones, not been able to see their family and friends, who have lost their employment. And this joint administration has sought to ensure that resources of the council, particularly our staff, have been diverted where we can to new work arising from the pandemic. Our staff have been overwhelmingly versatile and amazing, but as we know, the day job workload has expanded in many areas, such as environmental health. But despite these challenges, we've maintained the drive to deliver our ambitious programme of work. And I touched on my portfolio area, but in other areas, Labour and Liberal Democrat colleagues working together, like Judy Billing and Ruth Brown on community engagement, where they've established a food provision network, run an amazingly successful Holocaust Memorial Day event, a memorable occasion, worked in support of local community groups and key partners like the police to introduce regular public forums and engagement. And Gary Grindle and Sean Prendergast on housing and environmental health, providing more accommodation for the growing numbers of homeless across the district, supported the expansion of survivors against domestic abuse across the district, which is quite opposite to an amendment which we'll hear later on. And they've reduced taxi licensing fees for use of electric and hybrid vehicles. And it's brilliant to see you back with us tonight, Gary. And Paul Clark and Ian Mantle on planning and transport developed planning guidance to address climate change, encouraging appropriate insulation and renewable energy, adding new sections to the local plan, ensuring that major developments will be preceded by a master plan, allowing consultation and preparation for good infrastructure and facilities. We challenged the Luton Airport expansion. Elizabeth Dennis-Harburg and Carol Stanier on recycling and waste management. We've returned the waste service to something resembling business as usual, taking steps necessary to protect the service through the pandemic, implemented a concessionary rate and direct debits for garden waste collections, recruited a waste awareness officer to support residents, improving recycling and supporting our environmental objectives. Steve Jarvis, Kate Tarr and Adam Ruggiero Chaco on environment and leisure, where we've updated and made more challenging our climate change strategy, drawing upon what we've learned from the Cabinet Panel for the Environment and our carbon footprint assessments. As the lead authority for biodiversity on the Hertfordshire Climate Change and Sustainability Partnership, improving biodiversity through piloting rewilding, relevant again to another amendment later, and an ambitious tree planting programme. We've eliminated single use of plastics in our leisure centres and swimming pools. And finally, in Keith Hoskins and Helen Oliver on enterprise and cooperative development, well, we've made sure that we have a more commercial focus, moves forward to a real action, and this action will be for the benefit of our local communities, working with local partners, including local enterprise partnership, business improvement districts, to help improve and protect the local economy during the pandemic. And we've continued and strengthened our partnership with the Black Squirrel Credit Union. But there's much more. But I do want to really turn now to the present, because this evening, the council is required to set a budget for 21-22. And doing this must be mindful of the impact of any decisions it makes on the ability to set a balanced budget over the medium term. You don't need me to tell you, colleagues, that the world is a very different place compared to when we set the budget last year. That's not just in our hairstyles or our backdrops, or indeed this Zoom conference this evening. But I was struck by the comments from Baroness Louise Casey earlier this week, a former advisor to this government, who made the point that local government has had reduced funding of over £16 billion over recent years. Now, our share in North Herts is not quite that big, but to provide some context, I'll start with a summary of the impact of the pandemic on the council's finances. Our current forecast is that the cost of the council over this year and will be almost £2.2 million in additional costs and 3.6 million in lost income. Government made some clear promises to local authorities about meeting our lost revenue, which have not been fully kept. In practice, so far government has provided 1.65 million of funding to meet cost pressures. We're expecting around 1.68 million through the sales, fees and charges compensation scheme, and we're hoping that we'll get 230,000 from the Leisure Recovery Fund. But this still leaves the council funding a shortfall of over 2.2 million in this year. Now, some examples of the forecast impact, which is partly covered by the government's income guarantee scheme. Lost parking income of over 1.2 million. We get back around 2/3 of this. Almost 200,000 of net income lost from the town hall and museum. We hope to get about 70% of that. Over 150,000 in reduction in planning income. Over 100,000 reduction in demand for trade waste collections. We'll get back around 40% of that. And here are just some examples of forecast impacts which are not covered by the income guarantee because they are additional expenditure or are not sales, fees or charges where demand is reduced. There's over 180,000 compensation from the need to suspend our garden waste collection services for a while. Almost £240,000 lost in income from court summons. Up to £500,000 from reduced recycling material income. Over 100,000 less income from Treasury investments. And around 240,000 to provide accommodation for rough sleepers. And due to falling prices, it's worth noting that this reduction to recycled material income is potentially a longer term detriment to our finances, not just for this financial year. And looking forward, as we had that debate, we've committed to support our leisure services as they recover. Now, I'm not going to rerun that debate, but I do want to emphasise that this joint administration set out a clear desire to sustain our leisure services post-pandemic. It was welcome. There was full cross-party support. Now, I want to say, some of you may have heard, I think it was yesterday or the day before, Olympic swimmer Duncan Goodhue. He set out very tellingly how people, especially young people, are suffering both physically and mentally with swimming pools closed and no lessons taking place. And if our pools in North Herts didn't reopen, there is limited alternative provision. Most private gyms don't have pools. And we have a responsibility to our next generation and all the citizens of our district who can't afford private gyms. That's the importance of what we decided. But only this joint administration set out a plan how we can maintain our leisure services and do this affordably within our resources. You can't just hope for something, colleagues, you have to plan for it. And to paraphrase, failing to plan is planning to fail. And we just won't do that. This is why we also set out very clearly how we would manage and report progress on the leisure plan back to this council and residents. We're hopeful there'll be a quick recovery and the 2 million forecast will be more than sufficient. But we have to consider that the impacts of this pandemic could lengthen that recovery and the costs involved. Of that 2 million forecast, we're expecting that 140,000 will be funded through the income compensation scheme that has been extended until the end of June. We will also apply the whole of the expenditure grant of 558,000. That still leaves us funding around 1.3 million from our reserves. There is much uncertainty over next year in terms of when restrictions will end and when things will recover, that we haven't put in many specific forecasts. Instead, the proposal is that the minimum general fund balance is increased to provide an additional cushion against the unknown impacts. As the whole of the expenditure support grant has been absorbed by leisure, the only remaining offsetting compensation from government will be income support up to the end of June, where it meets several conditions. Alongside the impact on our spend and income, there is also the impact on our funding. the economic impact of the pandemic has significantly increased the number of households eligible for council tax support. This impacts on our council tax base, the weighted number of our properties that pay council tax. This time last year, we were forecasting an increase of 1%. Instead, we're faced with a decrease of over 1%. Last year, we calculated based on 7,141 properties in receipt of CTRS. This year, it's based on 7,821, an increase of 9.5%. And I'll also point out that the government's funding calculations assume that we will receive 12.12 million from council tax in 21-22. Due to the impact of CTRS, we're estimating we will be around less than 260,000 less than that. That's due to a blanket forecast by government around growth in tax base. Now, unfortunately, we have to consider that this might be a longer term impact, and therefore we're forecasting whilst the base will recover to pre-COVID levels in 22-23, it will then stay at that level rather than increasing by 1% each year. This is just a forecast, and we hope that reducing the need for council tax support and property growth will mean that there's actually some growth, but we can't count on that at this stage. But when I try and set out the facts of the impact of the pandemic on council tax, we must never forget that behind these numbers are people and families faced with tough choices on low incomes. This is why the way that this council engages and supports our communities faced with financial problems is so important and can make such a difference. Now, as our focus has been on COVID-19 over the last year, so has that of the Ministry for Housing, Community and Local Government. That's meant that the planned changes to local government funding have not happened and will be delayed by at least another year and maybe longer. On the one hand, that means that the negative revenue support grant will not be applied next year, and we will not lose another £1 million of the business rates that we collect. We still have new homes bonus. On the other hand, it means that uncertainty over our future funding conditions. As Councillor Steers-Hanscom said, government just cannot expect local authorities to plan properly, medium or long term like this. So as a result, we're making prudent assumptions that there will be a need to deliver savings in the future. The budget assumes that a further £2 million of further savings will need to be identified and delivered by 2025-26. We hope that a good proportion of these can be delivered through income generation and our transformation programme, but we can't plan on hope. So as a joint administration, we have put in place a challenge board. We're using that to get a full understanding of the services the council delivers, what determines how much is spent, and where savings or efficiencies can be made. But unfortunately, after these years of austerity, there are few genuine efficiencies left. So it's likely we will be faced with decisions over which services we should change in future. But we are committed, when the time comes, to carrying out a public consultation on those services that are most valued, and therefore those where changes can be made. Now, in the budget process, as we mentioned earlier, all councillors were invited to be part of that budget workshop process, which gave you a chance to hear the proposals being put forward as part of this year's budget and to provide comments on them. Council will know that there was unanimity cross-party that diverse services we now provide, like some toilets in town centres and Christmas trees provided for our town centres and Garden House Hospice, should be maintained. And following the presentation from Citizens Advice North Herts at the last council meeting, I proposed to Cabinet and now to full council that exceptionally we add an additional grant of 50,000 to them for next year to allow them to carry out the great work that they do in these very difficult times, as demonstrated in that presentation and the particular business need that they have. And indeed, I believe this work that they've done has been recognised in this year's Council Chairman's Awards. But we do have to be clear that whilst we have been able to fund them that an additional 50,000 for some years now, we may well not be able to do this next year. If Council agrees the award, I will ask officers to sit down with our partner organisations like Citizens Advice to review the affordability of any additional funding. But this clearly does not impact on the core funding agreements which are in place until the end of 22-23. Now, you'll be pleased to know I'm not going to go through the report in front of you in absolute and full detail, but I will pick out some key points. Recommendations 2.5 and 2.6 were there to reflect that it might be possible for the council to increase council tax by £10 without a need for a referendum. It would have been a difficult decision as to whether to go for that £10 increase, rather than a £5, as Councillor Steers Hanscom pointed out earlier. While it would have created pressure for some households, this would have been balanced against the need to protect our services, and also that our element of the council tax bill would remain a small proportion of the overall total. Now, government has now confirmed that £5 will be the maximum increase allowed for a Band D property without the need for a local referendum. Other bands will be pro-rata to this. Council should note that that £5 increase is equivalent to just over 2.1%. We will use this increase prudently and wisely to benefit residents, but while recognising even if government is not helping local authorities to plan ahead, we will need to do so to manage our resources in future years. With this increase and other increases expected by the County Council, including social care precept and the police and crime and commissioner increase, excluding the parish precepts, a district council element of the bill drops from 12.7% in 2021 to 12.5% in 21-22. So I'm proposing now that recommendations 2.5 and 2.6 are changed as follows: that the second sentence in 2.5 to be deleted so that it reads, approves a net expenditure of 18.441 million as detailed in Appendix C. And this point covers the increased funding proposal to Citizens Advice. 2.6 should be amended to read, approves a council tax increase by the maximum allowed without the need for a local referendum in 21-22 as per the medium-term financial strategy, which is £5 for a Band D property with other increases pro rata to this. Paragraph 5.2 refers to the need to carry out a consultation with business ratepayers. This was carried out via email and a page on the website. The email was sent to businesses and business groups such as BIDS and Chamber of Commerce who have engaged in the process in the past, but no comments have been received. I've already mentioned the impact of COVID-19 on the eligibility for council tax reduction support. The second bullet point in paragraph 8.8 details the council tax support grant, which is essentially compensation from government for the increased levels of CTRS. Given that the impact of funding has already been reflected, this will be applied to the general fund to offset that impact. Now, as I mentioned at the last council meeting, we're hoping to do a full review of the council tax reduction scheme next summer, but this still may prove impractical and we'll report back further on that. For the record, I also covered at the last meeting about the additional support offered to parish, town and community councils since the scheme was introduced in 2013. I said in the budget last year we'll keep this under review, and I can confirm that I propose that the amount of 38k should continue in 21-22, and I hope that's welcome. Paragraph 8.18 refers to the pool application for 21-22. Following some technical advice, it has been decided by all the authorities involved to proceed with the pool. This comes with some risk, but it's considered that the potential gain is more likely than the potential risk. Any downside is limited by the pool still having a safety net. In Table 3, in paragraph 8.20, you'll see that it's recommended to release the special reserve and 2.5 million on the MHCLG reserve into the general fund reserve. This will help to maintain the general fund reserve balance over the next few years. The MHCLG reserve balance will be kept under review, and it may be possible to release more of this balance in future years. All the other reserves in that table are set aside for a very specific purpose and would not be available to support general expenditure. Paragraphs 8.22 to 8.24 details the method for setting a minimum general fund balance. The Chief Finance Officer, Service Director for Resources, is required to recommend a balance, and the medium-term budget should be planned on the basis of not going below this amount. The increase in the recommended minimum balance reflects the uncertainty in relation to COVID-19 recovery, and that I described previously, and also the potential Brexit impact, particularly on the price of goods and services. Paragraph 8.30 to 8.33 provides a commentary from the Chief Finance Officer about the reliability of estimates. You'll note that these statements are more caveated than usual, which, as you will appreciate, reflects the uncertain times that we are facing. And I believe that the huge challenges, despite these huge challenges, this budget matches the ambitions of this joint administration, alongside the need for prudence in these uncertain times for local government finances. As a joint administration, our Build Back Better will include thoroughly reviewing every area of expenditure to ensure they meet the priorities we've set in our council plan, carrying out a public consultation on those services that are most valued by residents, ensuring we value our most vital resource, our staff, and work with them to ensure we get value for every pound we raise in council tax. We will seek to use the skills and expertise of all councillors from all parties and draw too on the undoubted expertise in our community, which, in contrast, I believe, to the previous administration, which far too often took the we know best approach and didn't listen. We are a listening council. We will set out new initiatives which we will take in support of key priorities like the climate change emergency, greener transport, effective town centre strategies to keep our towns vibrant and better engage our community, and continue to look for areas where we can work with other councils through the Cooperative Councils Network, the Growth Board, and other collaborations which achieve the aims through sharing resources or external funding. We will continue to strengthen the cooperation with parish and town councils, county council and neighbouring districts to encourage well-coordinated local services in line with our collaborative approach. And ensure our technology is fit for purpose, crucial at the moment, as public services are becoming increasingly online so that residents can conveniently access the information they need and decisions can be made democratically. We will ensure that charges for services are affordable and make sure that all our services are accessible to all by introducing, where we can, concession for service, as we have done for garden waste collection. We'll continue to find ways to support vital community organisations across our district, like Citizens Advice. And we will look to create a new community and business grant funds. We have some money from government where we can actually help, I believe, to actually create a new business support fund to actually help revive and revitalise our town centres in communities in coming months. And we'll look to see how we can support and work with our vital arts and culture sector. These things don't necessarily cost money. These are things about how we can actually work and liaise and actually act as the community leader that this council, I believe, is good at. So finally, Chair, can I move the following recommendations from Cabinet to Council? That's 2.2, which is as per the paper in front of you, which notes the position on the collection fund. 2.3, which again is on the paper as in front of you, which notes the position relating to the general fund balance, and that due to the risks identified, a minimum balance of 3.85 million is recommended. 2.4, again on the paper in front of you, approves the savings and investments as in detailed in Appendix B. And 2.5 million as amended, which approves a net expenditure budget of 18.441 million as detailed in Appendix C, and again proposing 2.6 as now amended, which will approve a council tax increase by the maximum allowed without the need for a local referendum in 21-22, as per the medium-term financial strategy, which is £5 for Band D property with other increases pro rata to this. In accordance with legislation, when we vote on this decision, I call for a recorded vote. Happy to move this paper, Chair, and obviously to pick up any questions or debate. Thanks, colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Albert. Can I have a seconder for this, please?
Point of clarification, please, Chairman.
Yes, sure.
Looking at the papers we have in front of us, the supplementary papers that recommend to council are different to those that are being proposed in the speech there. The ones that Councillor Albert has just moved are the ones in the cabinet papers, but the actual papers we have in front of us recommended to council, which is on the supplementary agenda, there are 7 recommendations on that, and they're different. Chair, which ones are we actually is being recommended to council?
Chair,
Advice, please.
So what I'm proposing, Chair, is that we take the recommendations in the paper that is in front of you on page 19, as I've proposed those amendments, and I'm happy to read out those amendments. I think actually that is the easiest way to deal with this, rather than the 7 ones from the cabinet paper, because obviously those included the potential of the £10 increase, and also the £10 the proposal around the £10, almost hypothecated amount for the first year of a £10 increase. So that's why I'm suggesting that we stick with the recommendations in the paper, which is effectively 2.2 to 2.1 to 2.6, but 2.6 are the relevant ones here for you to take.
So these are the ones, Councillor Albert, that you read out to us.
Yes,
and
on page 19. I hope, Councillor Levitt, that's helpful. That felt like the most progressive way to deal with. I understand the question, but I hope you can see that where I'm coming to, and why I'm suggesting it to do it that way.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. That does make sense, rather than get into protracted bits about. Yeah, that does make sense. Thank you.
Great. Okay, I still need a seconder.
Chair, I'm happy to second the recommendations that Councillor Albert have proposed and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor North. Okay, we're going to debate. I've got Councillor Michael Weeks who wishes to speak.
Sorry, thank you, Chairman. Chairman, before we go into detail, can I just go into the preamble that Councillor Albert did before his main speech? And he said, inter alia, he paid considerable credit to the waste service, including direct debits, etc., etc. Chairman, I find this all a bit rich for a party that 2 years ago indicated that were they to be elected, they would abolish the garden waste charges.
Okay, it's duly noted.
I'm happy to come back on that, or pick that point up when I summarise or reply to the debate later on.
Yeah, if we could wait until the summary.
Yeah.
Councillor Weeks, are you okay with that?
Yes, yes.
Councillor Gerald Morris, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I'd just like to ask a question on the risk analysis. Is that okay? The sheets that we were sent.
Sure.
Is that okay? Thank you. FR 43, which this is on the risk analysis, as I say, it's all a bit confusing, but anyway, it says potential default by a counterparty, £3 million. Is that the money that we are spending in bailing out Stevenage Leisure Limited, or is it something else, Chairman?
I'm unsure. Councillor Albert, I guess I'm going to have to ask you to.
Perhaps Mr. Cooper could pick that up for us, just for.
Right, yeah. Officer Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Albert. That is related to Treasury investments. So it's the money we invest with surplus cash we have, and that we invest with banks, building societies, and other local authorities. It's highly unlikely anyone would ever default, but there's just a risk there in case it does happen.
Can I ask a supplementary, Chairman?
Of course, Councillor.
So why is the Stevenage Leisure Limited money not included here as a possible risk?
Officer Cooper, I guess.
Well, it's a different sort of risk. The money we're investing, the money we're providing to Stevenage Leisure Limited is to continue to provide the service in relation to keeping leisure centres available to be open or open at the time. We are only reimbursing losses as they occur. It's not an investment in the same way as a treasury investment where we give money for a fixed period of time.
Thank you. It's still money, but thank you anyway.
Okay, thank you, Ian, and thank you, Gerald. Councillor Terry Home.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I have a few questions which, Councillor Albert, you might need to note the numbers because a few poses, as you can imagine. First of all, again on risk on FR14, the council is required to meet the cost of any award for new or ongoing judicial reviews. Can you just confirm what we currently have as existing judicial reviews, please? And then, if I may continue, yes, FR19, in another place I would confirm that seems to be a high risk, and it should rightly be a high risk. Thank you for including it. The costs associated on FR19 with the decision of the council, for example, for, appeals against planning decisions, that seems a very, very big amount there of £500,000 as the costs associated with that. Perhaps somebody could tell me what those costs are that we are taking as part of the risk. If I can turn over, please, may I? So I've got a few, I'm sorry, but that comes with the patch. Yeah, FR49 relates to the environmental warranty that was provided to North Herts Homes, or Settlers I know now, on transfer of housing stock. Can I ask when that expires, please, that commitment? And now I'm going to move on to revenue, budget savings and investments, if I can. I'm pleased that Christmas trees are on there. You're not going to palm off the toilets as well, because I know in the past when somebody else has suggested that, we've had all sorts of flack from opposition. E14, they are associated with proposal capital investment to facilitate provision of laptops for officers. Is the plan to give laptops to members as well, and will there be any efficiencies as a result of that? I doubt it, but certainly it does beg the question, are you going to provide them for members? Moving over the page, if I can, please. Yeah, PE3, which is removal of budget provision for district council elections. It may come as a surprise to some people, but I think we're going to have some elections in May, unless life has changed since this morning. So perhaps that should not, unless I'm misunderstanding what's in there. It might be just a change in the number, but certainly we'll have 3 elections on May here at North Herts District, County and Mayor and Police and Crime Commissioner, I think. So I know some of that gets reimbursed, but interested to know if that should be in there or not. PE4, yes, I can understand why you put that in from the AFM. Again, it's something which we advised the portfolio holder, and I'm glad you've taken cognizance of that.
So, Councillor Home, there's no question on PE4.
So,
yeah.
Finally, yes, the budget report, yes, other place you put it against AFM as an exposure, which I say I can support that because I know it to be the case. So there's a few questions there. I'm sorry, Councillor Albert, I have a few questions, but just for clarification, really.
Actually, yeah, I was just going to ask: is it Councillor Albert should be addressing this, or Officer Cooper, or both of you at one point?
I try up to Councillor Albert how he wants to handle it.
Well, Pastor, if Ian, I don't know if you want to, are you able to pick up the risk, the financial risk ones? That's FR 14, 19, and 49.
Officer Cooper, yeah.
Thank you. I'll pick up the ones I can answer easily, quickly, and then I'll look into the others if you give me a couple of minutes to look into them. So, in relation to FR 49, around the length of the warranty with Settle, that's for 30 years from stock transfer. So that would be from 2003 through to 2033.
Thank you.
Do we need to address the other ones?
And then under E14, we're already providing laptops to members. Indeed, obviously, I think many colleagues have got a North Herts Council laptop, so that is something that is open there. I mean, the specific proposals there are the ones that we discussed at the previous sort of council meeting, which was obviously is looking at the providing laptops to staff to enable that hybrid of home working and office working. But I mean, in terms of members, yes, it's open for members to ask for a laptop. We'd be happy to provide your North Herts Council laptop if you want. Conscious though, I know that you may well already, and I know you and Councillor Billing and others that have probably got a multitude of devices from different local authorities, and whether you'd want another one or not is another question.
I noticed, sorry, Councillor, but you notice on this list to reconfirm the amount involved. Do we have a feel for what that number is? Perhaps Mr. Cooper could answer that. It just says TBC.
I can just say one thing, that I was certainly asked whether I wanted a laptop, and I'm sure all the rest of the councillors were, and quite a lot said no, because they probably have got other laptops.
Well, I think I and Councillor Billing have one of the original tablets. Well, we have tablets which we were initialed years and years before many other people. So I have an NHDC tablet, which is a bit different to what a laptop is. I might have, so
yes, it was certainly.
I might upgrade it. That's a different discussion.
Yeah, laptop.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, Ian.
I don't know if Ian, that you could pick up on the sort of E14 in terms of that TBC and also the question in relation to PE3 on elections.
Yeah, so thank you. In relation to the elections, we had a budget in for this year, as you'd expect, and we have slipped that into next year. That's going to carry forward into next year. So that is to deal with the cost of elections in 2021-22. So we've kept the kind of saving in for next year to avoid double counting that. So hopefully that answers your question, Councillor Hone, in relation to why that's still in there.
So you've already budgeted for an election in 2021, you're saying?
We budgeted for election in 2020, as you'd expect.
You've already budgeted for 2021.
And we've slipped that budget into 2021, so it's already covered through that rather than.
Does answer that one, yes. And continue.
In relation to the question on judicial reviews and FR14, I believe that Jeanette Thompson is able to answer that one with your permission, Chair.
Yes, confidential. Just be some feel for, please.
Sorry about that, councillors.
Worried.
I thought I had switched the mute off. We do have one ongoing judicial review case in relation to a planning decision, which is currently stayed. But I believe that the vast majority of that provision also relates to, although it says planning decisions per se, is local plan challenge.
Okay.
So provision in relation to that.
I can understand that's why it's a different number then. It was a local plan challenge versus a judicial review of anything else.
Yes.
Thank you.
Does that answer all your questions, Councillor Hone?
Well, I think I've spent enough time and I've got adequate answers. So thank you for that, Chairman. And thank you for that, Councillor Albert.
Yep, thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. I was expecting a possible amendment at this point. Is there still going to be one?
There is, Chairman, but there are other members have their hands up first.
Okay, sure. Okay. Councillor Tony Hunter, please, next.
Thank you, Chairman. Before the amendments put on the table, a couple of small points. E19, I did note a reduction in the area-wide parking review, which made me very nervous initially when I read the first sentence, but I was pleased to see that the very laboured review of parking in Royston, the funds have been retained in a specific reserve. And I can only ask the executive member involved to actually try to accelerate and have a speedy review, because this has been put on the back burner for so many years now. Hopefully we can come to a conclusion at long last. The other item that I wanted to mention was actually something that was agreed in February 2020, and it's on page 45, Q1 2020/21 place near the bottom of the page, was about bin stickers, that Urbasa would be actually taking over from the council alternative arrangements for actually bin stickers during Easter and Christmas. Well, again, I'd like to make you aware, as you're a listening council, that I received and have heard numerous complaints about no hangers were put on bins in Royston during that period of time. Now, I don't know whether this was peculiar just to Royston or whether or not it was across the board. But the alternative arrangements could be that they're saving money in another manner.
Thank you.
We've got
two
Chair,
items there. Yes.
Chair, could I? I want for certainly on the second one. I don't know whether Councillor Dennis Harburg or indeed Councillor Stanier would like to maybe either kind of come in or comment on that one. And
Yes,
then maybe if we've got perhaps our sort of councillor, perhaps Councillor Clark or Councillor Mantle to pick up the parking review question.
Okay. Should we call upon Councillor Clark first? Parking.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. We are trying to progress the Royston parking review as quickly as possible. However, the consultants are mindful of the safety of their staff and not allowing them to go out and do site visits, which we want. We are continuing to press, but their safety must be our first consideration, as I'm sure Councillor Hunter would agree. But the concerns are duly noted and we are progressing it as quickly as possible.
Okay, could we call upon Councillor Dennis Harburg to address the
I think Councillor Stanier has got her hand up, Chair.
Sorry. Yes, she has. Sorry. Councillor Stanier, please then. We can't hear you. We are, but you're very, very, very faint. Can anybody else hear, Councillor Stanier? Sorry, no, we still can't hear you. Sorry, Councillor Stanier. Could I call upon Elizabeth then? Councillor Dennis Harburg.
Chair, on a point of order, if I may. Councillor Stanier clearly can't be heard by the meeting, so could I seek some legal advice as to whether she's able to log out of the meeting and back in to attempt to fix her audio so that she can speak, while also allowing her the ability to continue in the debate if she wishes.
Well, I'm perfectly happy if Councillor Stanier can log out and log back in again and give it a second try. If Elizabeth is not able to address the question and wants Councillor Stanier to address it.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Carol and I have just been sort of quickly fact-checking with each other as well, because being based where I am and not in Royston, I can't say whether or not things have gone as they ought to have done in a particular street or in a particular town. However, I can confirm that the hangers went out on the bins at Christmas. We didn't do them at Easter. There was an operational decision taken for that reason. I think that there weren't the bin collections didn't fall on relevant bank holidays, or there weren't enough people that were going to be impacted by a slippage to justify the expense of producing and sending out the hangers. But hangers went out in both North Herts and East Herts. I've actually still got my compostable hanger pinned to my fridge, and Carol, as a Royston councillor living in Royston, has assured me that she actually received her hanger. So I think what Councillor Hone might be describing is a small, isolated casework type incident, that it'd be helpful if members have those sorts of issues to bring to officers and the exec and deputy exec member, so that we can deal with them at the relevant point in time rather than saving them up for the budget. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hone, does that answer your question for the time being?
It wasn't Councillor Hone who raised that question.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Hunter. Sorry, do apologise.
I'm so sorry. I'm getting my names mixed up this evening. It's the T's and the H's, Terry.
Elizabeth on Waste Collection, would I?
It got me out. Yeah. So, Councillor Hunter.
Councillor Hunter. See, it's T's and H's. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Councillor Oliver for the reply.
I see. Yes. Thank you. Okay. So, Councillor Michael Muir.
Thank you, Chair. I have two questions. First, on officers' new laptops to work at home. My question is, they all have computers in the office. If they want to work at home on a computer, why can't they take those home with them and then bring them back when they come back into the office? Because that will save a lot of money. My second question is on park and review. Baldock was promised a park and review many years ago by Louise Symes. It's never happened. It's been slipped every year. And I'd like to know, for the residents in Baldock, when Baldock will have their turn on park
Point
and
of order.
review.
That's Anne.
What on earth has this got to do with the budget?
We've already spoken about park and review for Royston. That was allowed.
It was it's a point that it could go either way. I've been allowing it because it is linked to the budget itself. So I will allow it this time. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just add, many residents are contacting all the 4 Baldock councillors on parking problems, which we've had for many years, and it needs to be sorted for the good of the residents and of the town.
Councillor Moore, would you be happy with a written reply after this meeting, or would you like?
No, I'll be happy with a written reply. Thank you very much.
Let's go with a written reply then for that one.
And are you? Is Councillor Muir happy to? I mean, perhaps could Councillor Muir write to me in relation to the IT issue? I'm not sure I entirely understood the issue about taking a desktop home. Could you drop me an email about it? And I'm very happy to answer or give you a call about it. Would that be helpful?
Chair, with your leave, I can answer the question now to save email traffic.
Okay, please do.
So some officers have been given PCs out of the office in order to enable them to work at home. However, the laptop proposal is about future flexibility, and in particular is linked to Microsoft licenses. Essentially, a single laptop would require a single license and could be used at both office and home, whereas if you have computers at both home and office, we have to pay double the licenses. So there is quite a significant cost there that we are seeking to address.
Thank you, Anthony. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Elizabeth Dennis-Harburg.
Sorry, Chair, that was a legacy hand from before.
Councillor Dr. Simon Harburg. Harburg? Harwood, I'm going bonkers now as well. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder if now may be a time for me to put my teeth in as well. Propose the amendment as tabled.
Okay, please do.
Most people would agree that our wild places and the wildlife that depends upon them should be cherished and protected. But our wildlife continues to struggle. Herts and Middlesex Wildlife Trust have recently published a Hertfordshire State of the Nature report, evidencing the need and the urgency to address these problems. This report should not be seen just as a story of the change of species and habitats, but of people's relationships with wildlife. Increasingly, we're becoming disconnected from wildlife in our everyday lives. We must make more space, both physical and emotional, for wildlife if we want future generations to be able to enjoy the wildlife experience that we treasure. Whilst North Herts District Council undertakes a number of current and planned activities such as tree planting, wilding audits, limiting the use of herbicides and pesticides to an absolute minimum within the grounds maintenance contracts, selective cutting, support to local ecological groups, supporting residents to wild the verges in front of their properties, maintaining our commons and meadows in environmentally sustainable ways. There is currently no additional budget identified within the service and finance planning process to undertake a wider rewilding strategy. In consultation with officers, fellow councils, and most importantly, Herts and Middlesex Wildlife Trust, we're proposing this evening the creation of a 3-year pilot programme to look at creating a wildlife scheme to introduce nature highways and/or bio-wildlife corridors, both terms used synonymously in this area, throughout North Hertfordshire. The pilot will focus and look particularly at community engagement, getting schools, groups, and other members of the community directly involved with the project. This approach from elsewhere has been shown as key to success for generating long-lasting momentum and building a strong sense of community ownership. We therefore propose the addition of £150,000 over 3 years to be added to the budget for this purpose. The funding will allow us, subject to agreement, to assign a dedicated part-time person to coordinate action, engage local communities, and to manage the project and to undertake the purchase of necessary materials. Further, in partnership with Herts and Middlesex Wildlife Trust, they've actually already undertaken an ecological network map for the county, which shows where existing habitats are and models where those priorities might be linked up. It can help give us a strategic context for these wildlife corridors. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Who would like to?
Please to second, Chairman, and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Levitt. Okay, so we're now going to debate about the amendment. Can I call upon Councillor Jarvis to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. And thanks to Councillor Harwood for setting out so comprehensively what we're doing in terms of wilding, where there's a lot going on, along with increasing biodiversity and also the important impacts from of carbon sequestration from wilding as well. The North Herts has taken a leading role. It's a leading council in terms of the work of the Hert Climate Change and Sustainability Partnership in the area of diversity. And the Herts and Middlesex Wildlife Trust is one of the organisations that has been involved in some of those discussions. Now, there is an evaluation of the wilding opportunities across all the council's green spaces, which has been undertaken this year by Countryside Management, and they've produced a comprehensive set of plans for each of those locations. Some of those are things which can be implemented immediately, and work is currently underway to identify at least 3 additional significant sites, which can be subject to a wilding programme in the coming financial year. Some of the other proposals require rather more in the way of preparation. The initial ones will be ones that can be done by changing the management regime, but clearly for the sort of things that Councillor Harwood is talking about, there will need to be some more significant change in some of them. The implementation of those and the other issues are something that is already being looked at as part of the revision of the Green Space Management Strategy that's been undertaken over the coming year. And that will involve engaging with the community, with voluntary organisations, with interest groups and that kind of thing. And there are clearly some interesting ideas that the Councillor Harwood has suggested in his motion that I think we'd all be very happy to see incorporated in that review. And it may well be appropriate that the Environment Cabinet Panel considers this sort of inputs as well and makes recommendations on that. As I've said, the review is going ahead. It's going ahead with resources that we have. So there is not currently a need to provide additional funding in this year's budget in order to progress that. Now, it may well be, of course, that having done the review work and decided in conjunction with the community what further steps we can take, that may well have budgetary implications in future years. But I think it's much more appropriate that we should deal with that when we set next year's budget, when we have some clear programs to implement, rather than just setting aside an amount at this stage this year. So I'd be more than happy to support this, with the exception of the addition of 150k to the budget. So if Councillor Harwood were prepared not to include that and just say that the council should progress the Wilding agenda as he sets out, I'd be more than happy to take that on board. But I really don't think there is any need to set aside additional funding this year.
Thank you, Councillor Jarvis. Councillor Albert first.
Thanks, Chair, and I really do thank Councillor Harwood for bringing us here this evening. And you know, we've had a number of discussions as Hitchin councillors at the surgeries and elsewhere around this, and there is absolutely, I think, a great deal of willingness and support for the kind of program that you're talking about within here. But I mean, I do, and I'd say this, and excuse the pun, Simon, this is not about trying to put this into the long grass, or perhaps it is about putting this into the long grass. It's about that. It does seem to me that we do actually need, I think, to do what Councillor Jarvis said, which is actually go through the green space strategy. There's a number of activities already in hand, but go through the green space strategy. I do think, and I would be very reluctant at this sort of meeting, that we actually effectively set aside resources and indeed effectively set aside staff time on this particular task in the way that you're suggesting. So I would urge you either to withdraw, or that really is, we really want to see that section in bold, I think, removed. But most of the motion I have no issue with at all, and I think we would all be very supportive of it. But I just don't think it's appropriate at the time for all the reasons that Councillor Jarvis has set out. Although I'm just really amazingly supportive of lots of the other things that said there. But I don't think now's the time to set aside the 150,000 without having actually looked holistically at our green space strategy, which we can do over the course of the coming month, and obviously I'm sure can be discussed at the Environment Panel and so on.
Thank you, Councillor Albert. Call upon Councillor Levitt to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Jarvis and Councillor Albert, in their speeches and in Councillor Albert's budget speech, have emphasised the importance of this work and how important it is to the environment. The idea of putting this in now is a commitment. It's very difficult to put something in a budget. It's very easy to take it out, but it's very difficult to get it in the first place. Allocating this money at this stage shows a commitment to this work in the future. It may not be needed this year. Just because it's in a budget, you don't have to spend it. But it's safer to put it in now. It's 50,000 a year over 3 years. Councillor Jarvis said that the resource is currently available, but there's no guarantee that will be so. This would guarantee this work can progress, that the commitment is there and resources available. You don't have to use the budget, but if you've got it there, you can use it and take it out afterwards if you don't use it.
Thank you, Councillor Levitt. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Jarvis feels that it's a good idea, but we shouldn't. We don't need to spend the extra money, on a part-time person and all the rest that comes with it. It's just a question: who is the officer that is responsible at the moment for these sort of environmental and green issues, please? Thank you.
Councillor Jarvis. Councillor Jarvis, who's the officer in charge? You're on
I'm
mute.
just having difficulty finding myself on the finding myself on the screen, so I can unmute myself. The Vaughan Watson, the Director of Place, is responsible for this activity.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Morris?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Martin Steers-Hampscombe. Oh, apologies. Councillor Muir first.
Thank you, Chair. I like to support the motion by Councillor Harwood. He mentioned in his speech getting the community involved. Can I just say, I lead Baldock Rotary Club in planting just under 2.5 acres of trees next to Ivell Springs, and we've had over 200 members of Baldock community helping us on 6 days that we've been planting. We've had about 50 people, youngsters from Knights Templar School. We've had about 30 scouts, and all the others are adults living in Baldock. It's been a great community involvement. We've still got 400 trees to plant. That will make 1,200 trees we've planted. That would be carried. The other 400 will be done in February, March. So I do recommend this as a good community effort. So I will certainly support Councillor Harwood's recommendations of a budget of 150,000 over 3 years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Muir. Councillor Steers-Hampscombe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Certainly, echoing what Councillor Jarvis and Councillor Elbert have already said, I don't want to vote against this because the only thing that is wrong with it is plucking a figure from the air and saying this is what we'll put in the budget. That's not the way to do budgeting. And I have to remind you what I said in introducing the budget right at the beginning. Things are very tight for us. We may have to look at ways we can save money. And I would also remind you that, and Councillor Levin indeed said, we'll put the money in the budget. We may or may not use it, but we'll shove it in anyway. Now, sorry, and I do appreciate the difficulty, having been a leader of an opposition. Yes, you have to say things like that, but the reality is the administration has to look at things as they are, and not just look at it in ways as Councillor Levitt and Councillor Harwood are suggesting. And indeed, as I say, I do very much support what Simon has been telling us. There's some lovely ideas, but as has already been said, we are already committed to doing it. It is progressing in the way that Councillor Jarvis said. And the other thing to remember is that we are leading in the county on this. And we're working not with the Wildlife Trust just in North Hearts, but in the whole of the county. And we just have to look at the right way to do it for the whole of the county to make sure that we get it done in the most effective and efficient way possible. And just saying, oh, well, appoint a part-time officer without really thinking about it, without getting advice from officers. No, it's the wrong way to do it. So I do hope that Councillor Harwood, as he's got his hand up, I hope he's going to say that he'll refer it to the Cabinet panel as has been suggested, and that we'll go ahead united to do this sort of thing, but in a properly planned way, and not on the basis of that highlighted paragraph in the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sam Collins.
Thank you, Chair. Just to start with a couple of points. Firstly, just noting the time and the sort of break that we've all been advertised to, but I would carry on with that. And also a sort of secondary request. I see that Councillor Harwood's got his hand up, so has Councillor Oliver, and I suspect that Councillor Oliver might be a valuable contribution before Councillor Harwood uses his right to reply. So it might be good for them just to bump their hands up and down so they get in the right order. The point I was going to make was largely made by the Leader of the Council just there, that £150,000 of taxpayers' money on this project, yeah, okay, maybe, but it may be more, it may be less. I can't vote in favour of an arbitrary number that's been plucked out of thin air, but as a council, we're already committed to doing all of the things that are in the amendment. So yeah, sure, I support the amendment, but not that figure, because it's just a random number generator figure. It's silly to put that in there. And then just on the point of trees, we had a lot about tree planting. There's already £25,000 in the budget for tree planting in North Hertfordshire, and it's something this joint administration has been championing since, you know, we took over this council. And it's tree planting is super important, and I know both parties involved in the joint administration have it as a massive national priority as well as a local priority. So tree planting is something we're going to be doing anyway as well.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you. I just wanted to check that I've understood. Councillor Harwood, you said that it was in consultation with Herts and Middlesex Wildlife Trust that you'd come up with this proposal. I'm just checking. Herts and Middlesex Wildlife Trust you've consulted with them as the opposition Conservative group, rather than you're not saying that Herts and Middlesex Wildlife Trust have been involved in consultation with the council as a whole. Because it's just that I know that the Herts and Middlesex Wildlife Trust are completely non-party political, and I'm sure that before we started basing any hard cash amendments on anything, they'd very much want to consult with the council as a whole and make sure that they inputted their plans, very knowledgeable plans, directly.
Councillor Harwood, gives you the right to respond. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just reply to, I'm not really sure what Councillor Oliver was going on about. You know, the environment's really important. We take the climate emergency seriously, or we do not. Just to challenge Councillor Albert and Councillor Collins, I'm disappointed to hear you say that. I haven't plucked a random figure from the air. I have consulted with officers in North Herts District Council. I have talked, as you would expect, Councillor Oliver, in a meaningful way to the Wildlife Trust to get a figure that is realistic. Yes, it is a round figure, but that has been developed in consultation. I didn't just pluck a random figure out of the air. Anyway, moving on from that, you know, I really want to echo what Councillor Levitt said. Yes, we've got a green space strategy. Yes, it's in review. There is no budget assigned to the rewilding aspect. I mean, it's been said by numerous members of the council that this is in place and we are already doing this. If we're already doing this, please show me the council documentation in the parts of the green space strategy where we're proposing to do it. I'm happy to be proven wrong, but if you can send the documentations, paragraphs and lines to me, then I'll be very happy to see it. Coming back to it, we either take this climate emergency serious or we don't. As Councillor Levitt said, as we've just gone through the budget this evening, there's many things that have been in the budget for years that we roll year on year. Committing 50,000 a year to, let me stress this, to a pilot programme. The pilot programmes, pipe cleaner, whatever you want to call it, are there to help us understand what we have to do in the review. That evidence of a pilot programme, I'll repeat that again, contributes to the review. It helps us and allows us to make more informed decision. I would imagine a rewilding scheme would cost many millions across all of North Hertfordshire. It's a small amount of money scheduled now to give us informed facts in order to contribute to that review. So, with the greatest respect, and I understand Councillor Steers Hanscom, what you're saying, but I think it is important to commit this money now because it is a serious commitment from the council to the climate emergency, and it does inform the ongoing review. But I will challenge the fact that we are doing rewilding specifically. Yes, we're planting trees. Yes, we're doing other things. I do not believe we are rewilding specifically. That is the point of this proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Allen.
Thank you. So, Councillor Harwood, you're happy to be proven wrong by having the document sent to you. In that case, would I suggest that you hold this back, take down this and wait for us to send you the documents proving it? Also, your comments about not understand what you're going out on about are somewhat misogynistic.
Councillor Allen, you're proposing that there is such documentation available to all of us as councillors, and particularly Councillor Harwood, and proposing that it be sent to Councillor Harwood for review.
Well, yes, he's just said that he'd be happy to be proven wrong. Let's let him have that opportunity by taking this back.
Councillor Harwood, I'd have to break the rules and ask you if that's acceptable.
No, Chair.
No. Okay. Well, an interesting proposal. Okay, then in that case, I think yes, we are. I know we're at 9 o'clock. Just gone by 9, but I think this is a wrong time to actually just take the break. So I think we need to be moving into the vote for the amendment. And first, Hilary, if I could ask, is this going to be a recorded vote? By the way, is there a request?
Yes, please, Chairman.
Yes. Okay, so recorded vote. Hilary, can I ask you to take the vote, and if you could read the amendment out for us, please, because my screen's just gone blank on my laptop. If you could read the amendment out, please. Oh, sorry, I can read it now.
Okay, I'll leave it with you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Proposing £150,000 over 3 years to be added to the budget for this purpose of rewilding at £50,000 a year. So that's probably the gist of it, is it? Is there anything I should really expand on that, Councillor Harwood?
No, I think that's about the gist of it, Chair.
Yeah. Okay, Hilary, can you take us to the vote, please?
Certainly, as a recorded vote, I will call your names out. If you could answer for me for, against, or abstain. I'm just going to use surnames. Albert.
Against.
Alan.
Abstain.
Aspinwall.
Against.
Barnard. Councillor Barnard.
Councillor
I've
Barnard.
got to unmute for.
Thank you. Billing Claire.
Against.
Billing Judy.
I'm sorry, against.
Thank you. Bishop.
Councillor Bishop.
Yeah, sorry, I'm muting. For.
Thank you. Brown.
Against.
Bryant.
Against.
Clark.
Against, regrettably.
Collins.
Can't vote in favour of a figure that we don't know anything about. Against.
Has George Davis arrived yet? I didn't see him arrive.
Hello, yes.
Oh, you have. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Are you for, against, or abstain?
For.
Deacon Davis.
For.
Dennis Harburg.
Against.
Derbyshire.
For.
Green.
For.
Grindle.
Against.
Harwood.
For.
Hone.
For.
Hoskins.
Reluctantly against.
Hewson.
Against.
Hunter.
For.
Jarvis.
Against.
Levitt.
For.
Mantle.
Against.
McNally.
For.
Moody. Oh, sorry, he's. Apologies. Morris.
For.
Yeah.
For.
Nash.
Against.
Nguala.
Against.
North.
Abstain.
Oliver,
Against.
Prendergast,
Against.
Rice,
Councillor Rice.
For.
Bashira Chaka,
Against.
Shanley. Oh, sorry, he's not here. Stania,
Against.
Steers Hanscom,
Against.
Strong,
For.
Fake,
For.
Tyler,
For.
Tyson,
Against.
Weeks.
For.
Okay, before I carry on, can I just clarify with Councillor Davies? Did you hear all of the debate, and were you here before the item started, when the item started?
Yes, I believe I was.
Thank you very much indeed.
Chairman, could I just raise a point of order about that? I don't want to be mean or silly or nasty or have it in for Councillor Davis at all in any way, shape or form, because he's ever so nice. But I just wanted to seek clarification that is he allowed to vote on the amendments because he was there at the beginning of the amendments, but not the main budget because he wasn't there at the beginning of the main budget debate? How does that actually work? It's a bit complicated and a bit arcane, but I just thought I'd ask.
Good question, Councillor Willing. Councillor Davis, were you here for the whole of the session?
I believe I arrived at the start of the main budget speech. I certainly heard it proposed and seconded. I'd assumed my entrance had been noted, otherwise I would have announced it.
Right, okay. In that case, we will take Councillor Davis's vote in consideration.
I don't think you did.
So I'm just counting, won't be a moment. So the recorded vote I make, I'm just going to double check my fingers, just 1 second. I make for 18, against 22, abstain 2, so the motion's lost. Thank you.
Motion is lost. Okay. We've got a choice now. I think we probably need to take a break, but we obviously need to go back to the actual recommendations and take a vote on that. Is there a particular view that we should finish this item off and then move on to a break, or take the break now?
Take a break, Chair. And there's also a further amendment as well, Chair.
Okay, all right. And so what I'm proposing is a 5-minute break, if everybody's all right with that. And so we'd need to be back at, well, it says 20 past. It says like 6 minutes break. All right, 20 past. If you can now put yourselves on mute and turn your videos off. Yeah.
Sorry, are you, sorry.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, just to remind you.
Jeanette,
Yeah.
can I just check? This might still be live streaming. We've just put a card up.
That's correct. We are still live streaming.
Thank you. So if we want a conversation, we should probably do it
Okay.
via WhatsApp.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm on there now. Hang on. If I could call everybody to order, please. Everybody to order? We've got a few people joining us. Everybody to order. Harry, since we've been on the break, I know we need to do a roll call again to see everybody's back with us.
We certainly do. Let me just get my paper in front of me.
Thank you.
So I'll run through the surnames. Albert.
Yes.
Alan. Councillor
Yes.
Allen. Thank you. Aspinwall.
Yep, I'm here.
Barnard.
Yeah.
Billing Claire.
I'm here.
Billing Judy.
Yep.
Bishop.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Bryant.
Here.
Clark.
Yeah.
Collins.
Hello.
Davies.
Yeah.
Deacon Davies.
Yeah.
Dennis Harburg.
Here.
Thank you. Derbyshire.
Yeah.
Green.
I'm here.
Grindle.
Yeah.
Harwood.
Yeah.
Hone.
Present.
Hoskins.
Here.
Hewson.
Yeah.
Hunter.
Present.
Jarvis.
Yeah.
Levitt.
Present.
Mansell.
Yeah.
McNally.
Yeah.
Morris.
Yeah. Here.
Muir.
Present.
Nash.
Here.
Nguala.
Here.
North.
Here.
Oliver.
Here.
Prendergast.
Here.
Rice.
Present.
Chaka.
Present.
Stania.
Here.
There's Hanscom.
Here.
Strong.
Present.
Fake. Tyler.
Present.
Tyson.
I'm here.
Weeks.
Present.
Officers. Roche. Sorry, Anthony Roche. That's rude of me.
Don't worry, no, that's fine. I was just finding unmute. Yes, I'm here.
Jeanette Thompson.
Present.
Ian Cooper.
Yes, here.
Melanie Stimpson.
Present.
Peter Lapham.
Yeah.
Matthew Hepburn is on IT, and myself. Have I missed anybody? No. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Hilary. I believe that we might have another amendment proposal. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I would like to come back on some points on the main recommendations, but I think if it's probably easier if we get the amendment out the way first and then have any further debate on the main recommendations after that, Chair, after we voted on that. So yes, Chairman, I'd like to move the following recommendation. The following proposed amendment, sorry. Following a presentation to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee from Survivors Against Domestic Abuse, known as SADA, and the valuable contribution they are making during these difficult times, I would like to propose the following amendment: that an allocation of £100,000 is made to SADA to assist with providing safe havens for those suffering from domestic abuse by providing longer-term security against homelessness. And to put this into context, Chairman, we heard a couple of Overview and Scrutinies ago that since lockdown, since COVID, there has been a significant rise in domestic abuse, a very significant rise, not just in North Herts, it's throughout the country. People like SARDA do a very good job in providing safe places for those suffering from domestic abuse to go, so trying to keep families together where possible. They've done this very, very well recently. They had 2 safe havens. In the last year, they increased that from 2 to 20, a huge increase. As of last week, only 2 of those had any vacancies. They've received help from Settle, a substantial amount, £180,000 from the government towards providing those safe havens, but they have no surety of any funding at all for next year at present, is what we were told. I'm hoping something will happen to that, and I think we should make the we should be the ones to take the lead on this. It is very important. They do want a lot more. They do need a lot more, and I have spoken to them about their amounts of need. So it's not a figure out of the air. But this is a contribution from North Herts. They probably need something around £200,000 to £300,000 over the year to continue this work. That's why I'm proposing £100,000 contribution from North Herts, and hopefully that will give them the ability to get match funding from elsewhere, Chairman. And that's the reason for putting this proposal into the budget.
Thank you, Councillor Levitt. Can I have a seconder, please? Is it Councillor?
Yes, Chairman, Richard Thake. I'm pleased to second this and would like to reserve my right to speak, please.
Thank you, Councillor Thake. Going to debate, please. Any councillors like to speak? Councillor Sam North.
Thank you very much, Chair. Domestic abuse in all its forms is abhorrent. And has been a hidden pandemic in our society for decades. The matter of domestic abuse has clearly, as Councillor Levitt has said, reared its very ugly head recently, with the huge increase in levels of domestic abuse that have been reported throughout the pandemic, and the steady increase of domestic homicide since 2016. Domestic abuse is an important topic, and I was incredibly disappointed to see this particular area of crime was mentioned only once in the recent budget of the incumbent Conservative Police and Crime Commissioner for Hertfordshire. I'm very keen to support this motion, as I don't believe that the County Council is doing enough to protect those victims of domestic abuse. I don't believe the Police and Crime Commissioner is doing enough to protect victims of domestic abuse. I don't believe the government is doing enough to support and protect victims of domestic abuse. And I think that's highlighted in what Councillor Levitt has said, that even the charities have no financial confirmation of their support from the government, even for a year in advance. And that's incredibly disappointing to hear. But I would like to ask Councillor Levitt a couple of questions. The first of which is why does this amendment appear to only have been presented to us the day of this council meeting, when clearly, as he's already said, this was brought to overview and scrutiny a couple of meetings ago, as he said. I'm not sure exactly which date that was. And why has it not been brought up before, while we were going through the budget proposals and workshops? What specifically would the £100,000 grant be spent on? And more importantly, clearly, SARDA covers a number of areas, including our district. So what element of that £100,000 would go to North Hertfordshire residents, and what would go outside of it? And I think I want to say thank you for raising this issue, Councillor Levitt, but I would like to seek clarification on those questions to ensure that the right amount of money is being proposed and in the right way.
We have other speakers. Councillor Levitt is right to reply for this.
Could I take, if there is the other questions for me, could I take them all together? I will answer that, Sam, but I just want to make sure I can cover everything in one go, if that's okay.
It sounds reasonable to me. Is that okay, Councillor Moore? Yeah. Okay, Councillor Judy Billing.
Thank you, Chair. I've had the privilege over the last year, since the beginning of the pandemic really, to attend first weekly and then fortnightly and now monthly meetings with the Police and Crime Commissioner and my counterpart, my executive counterparts across the county, talking about all the issues of policing and social problems that have arisen during the pandemic. And it's certainly the case that domestic abuse has been high on the list of worries of all the district councils. Some of it in its traditional forms, some of it not in its traditional forms. Quite a lot of domestic abuse breaking out between siblings, between teenagers, pent up during lockdowns, unable to get out and taking it out on each other. And we've had some very interesting presentations and discussions throughout that time. Terry Hone, as county representative, will have been at many of those meetings. And we've discussed it at length. I know that Stevenage, the leader of Stevenage Borough Council, Sharon Taylor, and the Police and Crime Commissioner have vested a lot of interest and a lot of funding into this issue since long before the pandemic began. So I'm not opposed to our spending as much as it takes to make a difference in this field. What I am against, though, and I have to say it, is using the budget debate in this way. And I'm uncomfortable with that because, having, as Councillor Levitt and his colleagues will know, spent myself many years in opposition, I have always been told not to suddenly pitch up with a budget amendment on the back of a fag packet, as we used to call it, although nobody does that anymore, and certainly not to impose ideas in this way. So the good thing is that at North Herts Council now, we have, I think, already committed some finance to Stevenage against domestic abuse in our budget provisions for the next 3 years. If I'm wrong, then I know that Ian Cooper and Ian Albert will both tell me resoundingly that I'm wrong, but I believe that there is a phased sum of £50,000 already committed. But we also have the advantage now, having taken some of this model from the County Council, of having cabinet panels which are really set up quite specifically to look at some of these issues. And I would suggest that in lending my support to everything of a moral and social issue around helping people who are victims of domestic abuse, that the best place to have this debate is not suddenly at 9:30 at night in the middle of a budget debate, but is probably at the next or the one after meeting of the cabinet panel on community engagement. Because if this isn't about engaging with and supporting our local communities, I don't know what is. So I would prefer to do this properly, but I would be very angry indeed if that was taken to be a lack of interest or a lack of commitment to this subject matter, because it isn't. I'm just trying to remember what I've always been taught by Tory councils about the right ways of presenting things for budgets.
Thank you, Councillor Billing. Councillor Grindle.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree and echo really the sentiment that was mentioned by Councillor Collins and Councillor Billing, that the timing of this is a little bit off, and it raises, and there's some uncertainty about Councillor Levitt's amendment that does concern me, because what's not clear to me is that, as Councillor Billing alluded to, we've already agreed funding for the next couple of years with SADA to support their needs. So I'm not sure if the 100k is in addition to that, or whether we include the money that's already been agreed to go forward. And and clearly, you know, as the exec member for this area, the work that SADA do, we all recognise the fantastic job they do against, you know, certainly extremely difficult circumstances that many of the organisations we support are facing over the last 12 months. And I'm also mindful that, you know, I could have picked a number of organisations and sat at this meeting tonight and suggested we fund those with additional amounts as well. Homelessness is another key area that we'd desperately like to do more if we could. But clearly there are budget constraints, as Councillor Albert made clear earlier, that we have to be mindful of. So I'm just a little bit concerned, as much as I want to support SADA and other key organisations that are doing such a fantastic job during this time, that just to allocate money without sitting down and understanding more about where that money will be spent, or whether is it money they really need at this stage from North Herts District Council, or is it something else? I just feel that it's probably not appropriate, and that maybe there needs to be further discussions with SADA around what North Herts might be able to do going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grindle. Councillor Albert.
Thanks, Chair. And again, I absolutely thank Councillor Levitt for bringing this in genuinely, because I think this is really important to be able to have these debates. And I have to say, as an aged white bloke, I'm probably not the right person to speak in some respects in this, particularly as I say that I'm asking Councillor Levitt either to try and, if we can leave this on the table, or to withdraw it this evening. I mean, I had the opportunity when I saw the amendment, like Councillor Grindle, to have a quick conversation with the service director, Mr. Fullstone, before the meeting. Mr. Fullstone can't be here this evening, just to confirm what the position was, because we've been working closely with this brilliant organisation, and they've been doing fantastic work. What Mr. Fullstone said to me was that in his conversations with SADA, that they felt that they had received other funding, including money from Herts County Council, and what they had asked North Herts District Council for was £10,000 for the coming financial year and 20,000 for each of the following two financial years. That's what they felt they needed, and that we can make payments for from the grant that we've received from government in relation to homelessness and so on. And Ian felt that he could deal with that under delegated decision making under that, and that's obviously what Ian was proposing. Then obviously we've seen this proposal this evening. I am so reluctant to want to vote against this, but there are, as I said, budgetary constraints. But I guess what I would also urge here, which is why I'm asking Councillor Levitt to leave this on the table, or to withdraw it for now, to allow for further discussions, is actually that Mr. Fullstone has had these financial discussions with SADA. Best of my knowledge, that I don't, from what he told me, that he'd not had an approach from you, David, around the issue to discuss it. And it seems to me that the appropriate thing here to do is that we actually and I'm more than happy that we kind of take this away and actually to have that conversation with Mr. Fullstone, with SARDA as necessary to actually bottom out their needs. But what we understand their needs to be at the moment, and this is what the organisation has said, is that £50,000 that we were already agreeing to support them. So I guess I'm just urging, and I really want to try and see how we can proceed with some, you know, in a purpose of some unity here, because I think this council is absolutely supportive of the work of this organisation. But if the organisation themselves isn't saying that's what they need, then it feels odd that we're imposing money upon them that they aren't saying that they need at the moment. That's why I would really like to take this away for those further discussions, rather, because I think the danger is we end up voting for or against or abstaining or whatever in ways that I think we really would not rather do this evening, based on the fact that I think, you know, it would make sense to me to have those further discussions with SARDA and actually then review the position after that. So that's really why I'm urging, David, is to whether we can see and find a way to take this away. But that's what the position is that Mr. Fullstone outlined to me before the meeting, and that's why, you know, I am urging that see how we can proceed in a slightly different way and not actually pass this motion in the way it's actually phrased at the moment, because I do think they're budgetary constraints, and I do think obviously there have been discussions about how we can support them already in the ways I've set out. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Albert. Councillor Grindle,
Chair, if I may come in, I can sort of take a bit of time off this debate.
Okay, I have been informed that I've been breaking the rules with the right to reply on an amendment, but I'm going to allow it, of course, because I already said I would. Councillor Levitt, yes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to answer some questions very quickly that are still outstanding. Why now? Why not bring it at the budget workshops? We weren't aware of the issue at the budget workshops. They were held before we were fully aware of this issue. The community panel on the cabinet panel on community engagement meeting. Yes, it would be a good place to do it, but the last meeting was cancelled. All that said, the amount was actually based on what was said at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee at that particular time. There isn't anything specific in the budget for it. However, I am quite prepared to leave this on the table, withdraw the amendment as it stands at the moment. I'm quite prepared to leave it on the table for further discussion, probably at the community panel on the cabinet panel on community engagement when it can finally meet, whenever conditions allow us to meet. And take further advice from the officers and go back to SARDA and actually get clarification exactly what they need, because what their spokesman said at the time and what has been fed out is different. So yes, I do think it's important we find out exactly what their needs are. So yes, I'm prepared to withdraw the amendment on this occasion, but yes, please, let's leave it on the table and let's come back to it at some point.
Thank you, Councillor Levitt. That sounds a very good approach. That we're going to defer it to maybe a panel, and maybe it come to council at a later date after it's been investigated more. So you're formally withdrawing the amendment, Councillor Levitt. Yes.
Yes, Chairman. I did think it was a very important issue to bring to the attention now, and hence the reason for that. Now, you know, if we can get the full facts out of it, but it is an extremely important.
I 100% agree that it is, and it's been well worth us debating this type of approach this evening.
Chairman, Richard Thake, can I please come in? I seem to have a slight technical issue in as much as I have been trying to raise my hand to exercise my.
I haven't seen it.
No, I know you didn't, Chairman, because it didn't happen. I don't know what's gone wrong. I'm just merely advertising to you. Since the matter's been withdrawn, I will not speak to it because clearly that would be improper. But if I have a problem with future interventions, I will have to do it orally. I can't seem to make it work, Chairman.
I've got the chat column up. If you wanted to use a chat column.
Okay, Chairman, I'm grateful. Thank you. I'm sorry to intervene, but I thought it was important that you understood that I hadn't just ignored this debate as I was the seconder, I merely could not get in through the protocols that you ask us to use.
And just to clarify, presumably Councillor Flake is happy for the withdrawal, which is required under the standing orders.
I'm grateful to you for that reminder. Yes, of course I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you, Richard. Right, I think this takes us back to the original recommendations from Councillor Albert. We're going into a vote about it. Would you like the recommendations to be read out again, councillors?
I think Councillor Levitt wishes to speak, Chair.
Oh, yeah, Councillor Levitt.
Thank you, Councillor Steers-Hanscom. I did indicate I would like to respond on the budget proposals, as is traditional from the opposition on these budget proposals, and we do normally schedule it in as part of the agenda. Yeah, responses to the budget. I noted that Councillor Steers-Hanscom commented he was glad he did not have to ask for the £10 and only the £5. Brings the question, why ask for it in the first place? Why phrase it as the maximum possible? That's not really the nice way, you know. I don't think at this particular time we should be asking for council tax increases. Quoting from Councillor Albert, we must never forget that behind these numbers are people and families faced with tough choices on low incomes. That is why this council engages and supports our communities faced with financial problems. It's so important we can make such a difference. Over the years, in the previous administration, this council was criticised for raising the base levels of the budget. We did it to keep a good reserve and keep good reserves there, and we've done that. We have a track record, as the peer review committee said, track record in delivering significant budget savings. So we have significant reserve that's well above the minimums. We did that being prudential, Chairman, to make sure that come the rainy day, we had the money to be able to help our community out. It's more than raining, it's pouring down at the moment, Chairman. Imposing a council tax increase of any amount on the public at this time is not the right time to do it. That's exactly why we are prudential. That's exactly why we have reserves. It's when we come to the hard times that we can give a bit of relief to the taxpayer and give a little bit of relief to our communities. This is the time to do it, Chairman. This is the time we want to do it. I'll give you another quote. Increasing council tax would be a hammer blow to millions who are already struggling. That quote comes from Angela Rayner MP, Labour's deputy leader. Compare that to the quote, a council tax increase by the maximum allowed. Chairman, this is the wrong time for a council tax increase. Councillor Steers-Hanscom and Councillor Albert blamed the government, the previous Conservative government, and the austerity programme. They only went into that austerity programme because of the mess that was left by the previous government, Chairman. We had to have the austerity. It's paid off. Yes, we are. Everybody is short money. Everybody is short funds. We're doing the best we can with the money we have. We have the reserves to take this council tax rise out for this year, Chairman. I cannot support a budget in any way, shape or form that imposes that additional burden on the council taxpayers at the moment. And that is why, Chair, I will not, and I hope my group, and we discuss as a group, will not support this budget. In fact, I will vote against it if that proposal is left in. I would ask that Councillor Albert withdraws the 2.5, the proposal to increase council taxes. If not, we will be voting against this budget, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Levitt. Councillor Albert, if you have a response.
Yeah, if do you want me to summarise and wind up, yeah, I'm happy to do so if there's no. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I shouldn't have said that. There's Councillor Davis.
Councillor Davis first, yes.
That'll teach me.
But apologies if I was late on the hand there. So yeah, I was just going to say, I was contacted by a friend the other day. She had been on Labour's website and she was very concerned about rises in council tax, which Labour have come out strongly against nationally. And she was asking me, at their suggestion, to write to my local MP and urge them to oppose any increase in council tax. And yeah, so I've looked into this and there seems to be quite a theme going on. We've heard the quote from Angela Raymond that this would be a hammer blow to millions. Labour's Shadow Communities Secretary has said council tax rises will hit families right at the very time millions are worried about the future of their jobs and how they will get through the next few months. It is simply the wrong time for a tax rise. Even Keir Starmer said, took to the Telegraph to repeat the same plea not to hit families with a tax hike. NHDC Labour are saying, raise council tax by the maximum allowed. Did anyone spot the odd one out there? And yeah, I know this is all the Tories' fault somehow, and Labour would love to follow their own policy if only we could. Except, yes, as mentioned, we had a peer review recently and it looked into our finances. And that review concluded our reserves are 4 times the required level and that the council, we should be braver. Yet here we are hearing plans to further increase our financial cushion. Would it not be brave to spare people a hammer blow at the time when families are worried about their future and how they'll get through the next few months? And those are Labour's phrases, not mine. Even if we can't do this tonight, I'm going to go back to my friend with a clear conscience and tell her that I voted against any rise in council tax, as both she and Labour have urged me.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Albert. You're on mute, Councillor Albert.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, colleagues, for that debate and and the amendments. Let me start off by saying I will not be withdrawing the recommendation 2.6, but I'll come to that in a second. I think obviously it's been an interesting evening. I'm pleased that we've been able to help Conservative colleagues with their personal cases, whether it's been bin stickers and parking reviews and so on, but it's been a really interesting debate. I have the absolute utmost respect for my colleague, Councillor Weeks, but I know he regularly mentions about garden waste at these times, but I think it's just worth reminding him is that the situation was that certainly we on this side, as I think they did oppose the garden waste charge when it came in. But when we came into administration in 2019, that wasn't the view that we took. Neither was it in our manifesto in 2019. We recognised that actually it would not be possible at that stage to actually remove the garden waste charge. The thing we have had to do over that time, and thanks to Councillor Dennis Harburg and Councillor Stanier, is actually to pick up the mess that was left behind in terms of the waste contract, the garden waste, the food caddies and so on, and actually get it into some sensible state, and also now introduce what the previous administration should have done is concessions for garden waste to help those on low income. And I think that is something hopefully we would all welcome. And I do think residents have seen the improvements by this administration about not just on garden waste collection, but general waste collection over that period of time. Now, Councillor Levitt talks about, and I'm sure we could spend a very happy hour discussing the austerity programme from 2010, and it wasn't. And I think we'd all accept that this was not the mess left behind by the Labour government, unless obviously you can blame failures of mortgage companies in America on Gordon Brown. I don't believe that, and I'm not sure that Councillor Levitt does either. One of the facts is actually that Gordon Brown, by his leadership, actually helped to solve the financial crisis and ensure an even worse mess wasn't actually created by the American
Councillor Craig,
economy.
I'm
So I reject that.
Yeah.
I reject that point of view. But I'm sure we could have an interesting debate around the austerity program. I mean, I do think it's difficult here is that where we have been asked to actually spend additional money this evening, and then obviously we're also then, by the same token, faced with the proposal that we should freeze council tax. Now, we don't do that. We don't propose an increase lightly. We don't. We recognise that here that actually that there are different sets of priorities, and I would say to Councillor Davis's friend, I would be very happy to have a discussion with them and discuss the alternatives that this council is faced about whether we as I think cross-party supported maintaining our leisure provision. If we do not increase council tax this evening, there is a danger. There is a significant danger for the reasons I set out earlier, because of the pandemic, because of effectively the money that we've lost, not just on leisure, but the money that we've lost on parking and all those issues that I'm sure, I hope Councillor Davis did actually hear my speech earlier on. I will very happily send you a copy if you didn't hear my speech earlier on. But if you actually had heard it all, you'd recognise that our reserves aren't in the position that they were in previously, and that is something I not only regret, but I think we would all regret. But that is not something that is in my gift to actually resolve the pandemic, I'm afraid. But what we would do if we don't increase council tax this evening, that the reality is it's a growing impact. It's not just a one-year impact. We would actually lose that increase both year on year, and there's a danger here that it would take us over in the medium term below the minimum general fund balance. And so we would need to know almost immediately what savings that we would need to make now, not just and think about it over the coming time. And obviously no Conservative colleagues haven't suggested other savings that we might make instead, or what we shouldn't be doing instead. And indeed, obviously, they proposed some really interesting and important additions this evening. So I do reject the idea, I have to say, that we can't increase that. If we are to protect the services we provide for residents, services that I do believe that are valued, it is right that we actually have to increase the council tax this evening. Yes, we will want to make sure that we are able to support those on the lowest incomes through our council tax reduction scheme. Yes, we will want to make sure that we could do other things to support community groups, as we've done, for example, through our community support fund over the last year. Yes, we will also look to continue to support the things that we've done on our food provision networks over that. But these are things that we would need to do and will in some senses cost us money to do that. We cannot afford not to increase the council tax this evening. I would love to agree that we
finish up,
but we can't. So, colleagues, I would urge you to support the recommendations I set out as before in 2.2 to 2.6 as amended. And obviously, I've mentioned that we will be calling for a recorded vote on that.
Thank you, Councillor Albert. I'm looking at this, and the question is in 2.6, isn't it? That's being debated here. I was proposing to take 2.2 to 2.6 altogether in one vote, but I'm now thinking that maybe 2.6 should be a separate vote. Can I have some advice, Jeanette?
This will be your choice, but also just to remind you that we've got citizens' advice recommendation, which you may not have included in that proposal. But to make sure we cover that off as well.
Going to just come back on that. I mean, and thanks, Jeanette. The way the citizens' advice recommendation isn't at the moment in my list there formally covered as a separate item. However, it is covered by the fact that the amendment in 2.5 includes the extra 50,000, because we were proposing 8.391 and it's 18.391, and we're now proposing 18.441 million. I'm happy to do, if we want to bring that other recommendation formally to note the point about citizens' advice there as a separate line, as an additional recommendation, but it is included in 2.5 because we've increased the net expenditure budget by 50,000.
Thank you, Councillor.
Chair, if I may, page 43 of the papers, line R12, is that included in the recommendations? Because that's CAB 50,000 for 21-22.
Councillor Albert, is it? You're stating
yes, that's right. Yeah, well, that's that 50,000 we've just mentioned. Yeah.
Jeanette, do we need to?
Apologies for that. As long as you've got it covered off in the papers that are before the members when they're voting on it, that's fine, and it's clear to them what they're voting on. And it's up to you if you want to take things separately, but you do have to have a recorded vote legally.
Right, a recorded vote we need legally. Well, I'm proposing that we take 2.2 to 2.5. Sorry. Given that Councillor Albert and Anthony has highlighted where the £50,000 for CAB is in, so the 2.5, I would say that we'd vote on 2.2 through to 2.5 and take a separate vote on 2.6 because that seems to be a contention.
But both items, sadly, Chair, if you're taking it that way, are recorded.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, agreed, Councillor Albert. In that case, we'll take the third. Sorry, is there anybody else who would like to speak? Because I've got no more hands at this point. No, okay. Hilary, can we take a recorded vote for 2.2 through to 2.5, please?
Councillor Morris has just put his hand up, Chair.
Oh,
can I just on a point of order, Chair, the Councillor Albert has summed up, so there are no other speakers beyond that, unless on a point of order.
Fair enough. I think that's correct. Yes. Sorry, Councillor Morris. I declined to take your question at this point. Hilary, yes, if I can take you back to calling a vote for 2.2 to 2.5, and we'll take a separate vote on 2.6.
Excuse me while I just clear my throat. Thank you. Okay, so we're voting at the moment on 2.2 to 2.5 and 2.5 is as amended. So I'm just going to call your surnames. If you can just call out for, against, or abstain. Albert.
For.
Alan.
For.
Aspinwall.
For.
Barnard.
Against.
Billing Claire.
For.
Billing Judy. Councillor Judy Billing.
I voted for, but I only said it to myself. I'm so sorry. For.
Thank you. Bishop.
Against.
Brown.
For.
Bryant.
For.
Clark.
For.
Collins.
For.
Davies.
Against.
Deakin Davies.
Against.
Dennis Harburg.
For.
Derbyshire.
Against.
Green.
Against.
Grindle.
For.
Harwood.
Against.
Hone.
Against.
Hoskins.
For.
Hewson.
For.
Hunter.
Against.
Jarvis.
For.
Levitt.
Against.
Mantle.
For.
McNally.
Against.
I do apologise. Morris.
Against.
Muir.
Against.
Nash,
For.
Nguala,
For.
North,
For.
Oliver,
For.
Prendergast,
For.
Rice.
Abstain.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Abstain.
Thank you very much indeed. Rajera Chaka,
For.
Shanley, Stania,
For.
Steers Hanscom,
For.
Strong.
Against.
Is that against?
Yes, it was against.
Thank you. Fake,
I'm against Hillary.
Tyler,
For.
Tyson,
For.
Weeks.
Against.
Give me 2 seconds to count up. Thank you very much. That's 25 for, 16 against, and 1 abstention. Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much. If I could ask you, Hillary, to take us in the vote for 2.6, please. Do we need to read that out? But it's the £5 increase in tax.
Yes. So it's 2.6 as amended. So I'll go through exactly the same process and call your surnames. Thank you. Albert.
For.
Alan.
For.
Aspinwall.
For.
Barnard.
Against.
Billing.
For.
Thank you. Billing Judy.
For.
Bishop.
Against.
Brown.
For.
Bryant.
For.
Clark.
For.
Collins.
For.
Davies.
Against.
Dennis Harburg.
For.
Oh, sorry, I've missed Steve. I've missed Councillor Deacon Davies.
Against.
Thank you. Apologies for that. Derbyshire.
Against.
Green.
Against.
Grindle.
For.
Harwood.
Against.
Hone.
Against.
Hoskins.
For.
Hewson.
For.
Hunter.
Against.
Jarvis.
For.
Levitt.
Against.
Mantle.
For.
McNally.
Against.
Morris.
Against.
Muir.
Against.
Nash.
For.
Nguala.
For.
North.
For.
Oliver.
For.
Prendergast.
For.
Rice.
Against.
Rajera Chaka.
For.
Stania.
For.
Steers Hanscom.
For.
Strong.
Against.
Bake.
Against.
Tyler.
For.
Tyson.
For.
Weeks. Councillor Weeks.
Beg your pardon. And against.
Thank you very much. Just 2 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, the result is 25 for, 17 against, and 0 abstain. So that's passed. Thank you.
Carried.
Yes.
Thank you, Hilary. Moving on to 6B, referral from Cabinet 26/01/2021, investment strategy, brackets capital and treasury, where I can call upon Councillor Albert to present and propose. Councillor Albert, do you need more than 5 minutes for this?
No. I'll try and rush through this. Thanks, Joe. I will try and be briefer, but I am looking forward to tuning into the Herts County Council meeting on the 23rd of February to see how Conservative councillor colleagues here vote when it comes to the maximum council charge at that meeting. I'm sure they'll all be voting against the recommendation of David Williams on that one, but we'll see on that date. The main components of this report, however, are to agree a capital programme for next year and beyond, and to agree how surplus cash will be invested. We're proposing a capital programme of 14.718 million in 21-22 and 25.074 million for the period 22-23 to 25-26. The paper provides recommendations on the prudential and other indicators that will be monitored and reported in the next financial year. And as the council has identified a potential need to borrow for capital purposes, there is a minimum revenue provision policy included, and it contains the scope of our treasury investments where the council will invest any surplus cash. The capital programme should reflect the costs that will be incurred in maintaining existing assets, as well as the acquisition and development of new assets. Both of these should reflect the priorities of the council. The capital programme reflects what was presented at the member budget workshops, except for those changes detailed in paragraph 8.4. As in previous years, it's expected that the core capital programme, i.e. those items which support service delivery, can be funded from existing and new capital receipts. However, the investments in the regeneration of the district through commercial and residential property acquisition and development are likely to require borrowing. The impact of this is therefore considered at a summary level, but given the uncertainty over the timing and scale of these investments, they will be fully considered when the need arises. Any investment will be contingent on economic conditions and the opportunities that arise at the time. As detailed in paragraph 8.9, it's necessary to consider how the council will invest its surplus cash and its appetite for risk. I said previously at council that overall investment rates continue to decline. New investments are providing a maximum yield of around 0.1%. At 8.9, we're proposing some changes in respect of local authorities and building societies and banking groups that we invest with. In addition, whilst the ability to invest in a property fund has been in the strategy for a number of years, this will now be looked at and taken forward with the intention of selecting and investing in an appropriate fund by the end of April. It's also proposed the ability to invest in a UK multi-asset fund is also added to the strategy. And any of you are a pension fund trustee will know about the importance of diversification. The intention will be to select and invest in a fund early in the new financial year. And finally, the Code of Practice on Treasury Management requires us to submit a report to full council, setting out the 4 clauses which should be formally passed in order to approve the adoption of the code. And the detail is set out in paragraphs 8.12 to 8.17. As the Chair, I formally recommend, as in I think in 2.1 and 2.2, that we recommend to council the adoption of the investment strategy. It's Appendix A, including the capital programme and prudential indicators, and we recommend to council the adoption of the 4 clauses in relation to the Code of Practice on Treasury Management as set out in paragraphs 8.12 to 8.17. I move, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Albert. Can I have a seconder?
Happy to second the recommendations, Chair, reserving my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor North. We're moving to debate then about these 2 recommendations. At this point in time, I have no hands raised. I have 2 now. Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a small point that I wanted to bring up, just to say thank you to officers for listening to local councillors, and actually including on page, I think it's 48, the expansion of the skate park at Royston, although it's 23-24, they're not going to happen between now and then. I wish it was earlier. I'd like to thank the inclusion of that, and also the continued expansion for Royston Leisure Centre and its extension, whoever the service provider might be by then. Just that point, Chairman. Thank you kindly.
Duly noted, Councillor Hunter. Councillor Levitt.
Thank you, Chairman. Don't intend to say much on this. There's quite a lot of the capital proposals are ones that the previous administration put forward and are being continued, which I welcome, Chairman. And just a slight aside, as everybody else seems to be doing it, be interesting to see how Labour vote in the Hart County if the opposition will be voting for the Hart County Council budget increase next week. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Levitt. Would anybody else like to speak? Any councillors? We have no further hands raised. Okay, well, in that case, I'm going to take us to the vote. So voting on recommendations 1, that is the investment strategy as attached in Appendix A, including the capital programme and prudential indicators, be adopted. And 2, that the 4 clauses in relation to the code of practice on the treasury management as detailed in paragraph 8.12 and 8.17 be adopted. Hilary, if I can ask you to take us to the vote, please.
Certainly, Chair. If those in favour of the recommendations would like to raise their blue hand now, please.
Clearly carried.
I'm just going to clear those, and if I can ask those people who wish to vote against to raise their hands now. Okay, there's none there, so I'm going to ask for those who wish to abstain to please raise their hands now. Thank you. That's carried, Chair.
Thank you, Hilary. That's okay. Now on to item 12, exclusion of the press and the public. I propose the following resolution that under section 100A and the Government Act of 1972, the press and public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that the following report will involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the said act as amended. Can I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hoskins. Is there any debate going into this? No. Then can I? Do we need to have a vote? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Can I, Hilary? Can I ask you to take a vote, please, of those?
Can those in favour please raise their hand, please? That's carried, Chair.
Thank you, Hilary, and thank you, councillors. You will now be sent an invitation into to go into a breakout room, and when we're here, we'll take a roll call.
Councillor Muir, have you got the invite to go to the room 2, the breakout room?
Sorry, no, I haven't.
Okay. And Matthew, can you just see if...
Yeah, Councillor Muir has been invited.
Right.
You need to invite me again.
I'm not able to re-invite you, Councillor Muir.
What you have to do, Councillor Muir, is you'll have to leave the meeting, come back, and then Matthew can invite you again. So I'll let them know to wait for you. Okay, so you need to leave the meeting and come back in.
Okay, Councillor Muir, I'm going to readmit you, okay? If you could accept that invitation. Hi both. Are you trying to go back into the? Sorry, you're muted.
No, not for me. I've got a declarable interest, so I've got to be out of the.
Ah, okay, sure.
Matthew, would you take the holding card down, please? Thank you very much.
Hilary, if I ask you to take a roll call, please.
Certainly, Chair. I'm just getting my paperwork. So again, surnames only, please. Albert.
Yep.
Alan.
Yes.
Aspinwall.
Yeah.
Barnard.
Yeah.
Bill and Claire.
Yes.
Billy and Judy.
Councillor Judy Billin seems to be in the breakout room still. I have closed it, but
Okay, I'll come back to her in a moment. Bishop. Bishop.
and the same Councillor Bishop's in the room. So
Okay, they should be coming back to us in a minute then if you've closed the room. Brown.
Here.
Bryant.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Collins.
Hello.
Davies. Davies.
Here.
Deakin Davies.
Yes, here, Hillary.
Dennis Harburg.
Here.
Derbyshire.
Yeah.
Green.
Here.
Grindle.
Yeah.
Harwood.
Yeah.
Hone.
Yep.
Hoskins.
Yeah.
Gibson.
Yeah.
Hunter.
Present.
Jarvis.
Yeah.
Levitt.
Yeah.
Mantle.
Here.
McNally.
Yeah.
Morris.
Yes.
Muir.
Present.
Nash.
Here.
Nguala.
Here.
North.
Here.
Oliver.
Yeah.
Prendergast.
Here.
Rice.
Here.
Mashera Chaka.
Present.
Thania.
Yeah.
Liz Hanscom.
Present.
Strong.
Present.
Fake.
Yeah.
Tyler.
Present.
Tyson.
Still here.
Weeks.
Sort of.
Okay. And the two people that weren't here earlier, that is Judy Boleyn.
I'm so sorry, I fell asleep in the breakout room and I still haven't put my bins out, but I'm here.
Okay. And Councillor Bishop.
Oh, I'm here.
Thank you very much. Officers, Anthony Roche.
I'm here.
Jeanette Thompson.
Present.
Ian Cooper.
Yeah.
Melanie Stimpson.
Present.
Peter Lapham.
Present.
And again, Matthew on IT and myself. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Hilary. I'd like to thank the public for being patient while we were in part 2, and we're now back in part 1. We're taking on item number 9, which is the land of Templars Lane, Preston. Can I call upon Councillor Keith Hoskins to present and propose, please?
Sorry, Chair. Sorry to interject. Sorry to interject, but I'd just like to declare a potential interest as an employee of First Garden City's Home, so I won't be taking part in the debate or the vote.
Duly noted, John. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just interject? As it's a DPI, then you can't remain within the meeting.
Oh, okay. Bye-bye.
If that's the case, we'll treat it the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Keith.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I
wish to move the recommendation 2.1 as under the agenda item 9, that the terms for the sale of this land be approved.
Can I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Moving into debate, there are no hands raised at this point, and I'm thinking there aren't going to be. Just give a couple more seconds, just in case somebody thinks of something. No, okay. Hilary, can you take us into the vote then for the recommendations that 2.1, the terms of the sale of this land be approved? Hilary, are you online?
She is still
Can
muted.
Sorry, I'm talking to myself here. I do.
I was thinking it was far too quiet, far too quiet.
Okay, I'm going to clear the hands. If those who would wish to vote against would please raise their hand. And anybody who wishes to abstain, please raise their hand. Okay, that's carried, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilary. That's okay. We're carried on that one. Thank you very much, councillors. Number 10, item 10 of our agenda is a notice of motions. There are no motions received this time, so that's a quick one. And 11, questions from members. There are no questions from members.
Chair, apologies. Could I just raise a point of something? I don't know what it's a point of something about, but
is it order? Councillor Harwood?
Something. Yeah, obviously we asked Councillor Prendergast to leave the meeting, and obviously in this environment it's now very difficult for him to come back in. But I don't really follow the logic of asking him to leave the meeting, because all he needed to do was switch over and watch the YouTube channel, which is broadcasting this live, and he could have seen exactly the same as he stopped in the meeting. But now it's incredibly difficult because he's now not in this part of the meeting. So I'm afraid I don't really follow the logic. I mean, not for tonight, but for future. It doesn't really make any sense asking him to leave the meeting. And I think we should look at that.
It's part of the requirement, Councillor, if you have a DPI.
Yes.
And that is set out in the obviously to mirror what you would normally be expected to do, although obviously because it was quite
well,
large.
Thank you for your advice, legal. But as the council, I think we can probably change the rules. So
no,
what I'm suggesting,
Chair.
Well, Councillor Harwood, I'd say that if there was anything to do with motions and questions, if there were any other items that we were going to address this evening, we of course would invite Councillor Prendergast back.
What we can do.
Could we have put him in a breakout room?
That Councillor Green, what I was going to say is we can put them in the waiting room, and then we can readmit them when the item is over.
So that's what we would do in the future then. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Harwood. Thank you, Councillor Green.
Yes. And I'm obviously speaking as monitoring officer here for the council, and I do appreciate the reference to legal, but as service director and the monitoring officer, obviously it is my role to advise accordingly. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Jeanette. Okay, so we have no no motions and no questions. So therefore, we are at the end of the meeting. You'll be pleased to hear. And I'd like to close the meeting. Thank everybody for their time, the officers and all the members. And I'm closing the meeting at 23:02.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman.
Good night.
Bye.